everybody, and welcome to another edition of Design Recharge. This is a weekly program for designers at all levels to encourage, motivate, hopefully inspire, and educate and connect, hopefully, to other designers. So, thank you guys for coming. Meredith, you will be happy. Bethany, Meredith is also an Auburn grad, so we got Auburn people all around. War Eagle. But
Ooh,
here
War
we
Eagle.
Bethany Heck, and I have been following Bethany for at least a little over 2 years for sure. So I am excited to have Bethany on. She's definitely an up and comer. She has a ton of cool interests, and she's made so many neat designs. I think it's great that I would be um, I'm just amazed that she has time to sleep actually with all of her interests. So I'm very excited to have her on, but I'm going to let her introduce herself and kind of tell what got her to design and where she is now and what she's doing. So Bethany, if you could introduce yourself and thank you so much for coming and being on the program today.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Bethany Heck. I'm a web designer, graphic designer, kind of jack of all trades. From Auburn, Alabama. Went to Auburn. Been a few other places since, but now I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, working at a great web design firm called Cyberwoven. So yeah, that's me.
All right. So I know that your dad is a designer and he's also a design educator. He was one of my professors, great professor. And so you've been around design all your life. And I can only imagine because I know how I am with my niece or whatever, I end up teaching her about design and she's like in sixth grade. She doesn't really care probably, but she ends up getting to know a little bit about. So how can you tell about how you actually found your place and if you were forced into it or whatever?
I was definitely not forced into it. My dad would have wanted me to be, I think, anything other than a graphic designer. Um, it wasn't something that I don't feel like even when I went into design I fully understood what it meant, and I think that's true for most design students. You might have taken a design class in high school and liked using Photoshop, and you're like, oh, I could do this for the rest of my life. You sign me up. I feel like a lot of people fall into it, and even though my dad was a graphic designer, I feel like I kind of fell into it too and got really lucky. Um, it makes it having a dad who's a designer makes some things easier. I don't have to explain to him or my mom what graphic design is, and most of the extended family sort of understands what it is too. So those kind of things are easier. We always had Adobe software in the house, so having Photoshop and stuff like that, learned how to use that in junior high, which kind of got me an early start on some things. So yeah, I mean, it's not weird to me because I grew up with it, but I know a lot of people who are really shocked and say that they've never known somebody whose father or mother, one of the parents, was a graphic designer.
Well, I think, and you also talk about, I've read a lot of interviews with you and some other, your websites, you have multiple websites, your blog, and you have this love for vintage or this old kind of stuff. And I wonder, because I remember your dad going and he had gone, they used to go to London in the summers
Yeah.
and take uh, kids to the Royal Academy of Art and do an exchange program or something. And he had one summer, and this is not funny. I'm sure your dad will be impressed that I remember this, but he had done like these rubbings of gravestones or whatever, and I remember that, and I remember his love for typography, and I think that, I think being around that and seeing that stuff, I think it has to affect. And I know you have a love for typewriters, which I actually also have. I don't do anything with them either. But you want to talk about that crazy thing because it's just something nice. I mean, I have, necklaces that just have, the keys, and it's just like I like the numbers or the letters or whatever. Can you talk about that and how you got started doing that, collecting that?
Uh, I it's hard to pinpoint exactly when. I know that like the first when I started collecting wood type was I needed to do it was something like handmade in one of the early drawing classes, like Professor Bondi's drawing two class or something like that. We needed to like collect stuff. We needed to make things by hand, and my dad had some wood type lying around, and I asked him about it, and could I use it? And so I got some water-based ink in a brayer and rolled it up and pressed it by hand, and was like, oh, this is like grunge effect, but you're like doing it by hand because like that's the only thing at that time that I had to like equate it to was doing grunge work in Photoshop, which is what I spent all of high school doing, ugly, hideous stuff. But that was kind of what got me into kind of older type processes, and things like that. And typewriters came soon after. Typewriters are just these. It's hard to believe that that was like a common thing with how complicated it is from a mechanical standpoint. Like just from an engineering, point of view, they're really beautiful objects. They're really complicated. They age well, even when they're rusted out. They look really nice. They're just a really inspiring object. So it's easy. I think that's something that a lot of people get really excited about and they want to collect.
Well, cool. I like them too, and I also like wood type. So this was is a magnet. So I don't have as many as you, but I do have. And think this is a Futura G. So I have two magnets, and I have other at home. I have other,
Very
um,
nice.
but it is a little bit of an obsession. But they're kind of expensive. So you have, I think you said between in one of the interviews, which I think was like right after you graduated. So you probably have more now, but you had like 14 complete alphabets and then a lot of extra stuff. Do you have how much wood type do you have now?
It's probably about right. I might have a few more than I did when I graduated. I know I bought a few things since, but when I went off to grad school and stuff and start having to move it, then you start really, thinking about, do I love this enough to both pay a lot of money for it and move it with me the next time I move? And I've been through a lot of moves in the past year, so that has slowed my wood type collecting down. There for a while, it was where all my extra money was going.
Yeah, 'cause it's a lot to keep all the drawers and it's heavy, especially if you got
It is
metal.
heavy.
If you have just wood, it's still heavy.
It is
Um,
heavy.
definitely. So one of the things I want to talk about is, and this is one of the things where I started first following you. You had won an award, and you'd gotten a lot of publicity on this, the Eephus, right, long E,
Yes.
Eephus project, which if you're a baseball person, you probably will be really excited. And I know if you are new to Design Recharge, we actually pull images up and then we're going to bring them on screen and you actually can move them. Everybody individually has to move them themselves. So um, scorecards and record keeping is huge in baseball. And can you just talk about maybe what role baseball has played in your life and what you what caused you to think that hey, I need to make something that's easier for people to do their record keeping.
Yeah. When I did the Eephus League as my senior project at Auburn, which is the big project you do at the end of your time at Auburn. It's your senior year. It's like the only design class you take. You spend a ton of time on it, and the scorebook was actually kind of a throwaway thing initially. I wanted to make something physical. Like I focused on making like a website and some extra stuff, but I was like, I want to make like a book, something that I can really, have some fun with the process on. And we had a laser cutter, and I was like, well, I can do die cuts and all this other kind of stuff. So I wanted to go all out on it. So I looked at a bunch of scorebook designs. Scorebook designs used to be really simple, and as time has passed, like the image that just came up, they look like this now. They don't they have more innings than they need. They have more player slots than they need. They don't even really look like, if you know a little bit about baseball, you know enough to know that this doesn't really resemble baseball in a lot of ways. And I find that the more detailed they get, the more you kind of have to keep score a certain way. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about scorekeeping is that everybody could keep score a different way and still, they say the same things, but they just say them in different ways. It's a lot like handwriting. So I wanted to make something that was simpler. I wanted to make like basically, if Moleskin decided that they wanted to be baseball fans and make a scorebook, what would it look like and how would it be made? So I did that as part of my senior project and sent it on to Paul Lucas of uniwatch.com, who writes for ESPN sometimes, and he loves, ephemera and minutia, and he's a big baseball fan. So I was like, well, this guy's like kind of like my ideal audience. So if he doesn't like it, then it's not a good idea. And I sent it to him, and he really liked it. He was nice enough to interview me, and so basically, the Eephus League wouldn't exist if he hadn't done that interview because nobody knew what it is, and I wouldn't have gotten any attention for it. But he has a lot of sway, and he was nice enough to help me promote the site and the scorebook, and so that's kind of how everything happened.
So you did not know Paul Lucas before this.
No, we had
So
never communicated.
one thing I think is great that I think most people do not do because they're afraid is they don't want to contact anybody because they're like, oh, and a lot of people, most people, if you have something interesting, they they like interesting things too, and they also want to help you. Most people are very good, and they have, you know, uh, they want to be helpful. So this is actually down here is the whole interview, and it's really a great interview. So I'm not going to ask her some of the same questions that he did, but just so everybody knows what happens when these pictures come up, you can actually drag your mouse over them, and then it'll say drag window, and you can actually put it over my face, and so you can still see Bethany talking, or you can put it over the chat or whatever. If you don't like where it is, all you have to do is move your mouse off of it and then drag it, move it back on, and then you have that drag ability. If you leave your mouse on there too long, you can't do anything with it. So this is your design. So it's much simpler. And this is sideways, right? You have to turn the book
Yes.
sideways to kind of get it. And what I like is that you also included, which I'm going to pull the next one up, you included stickers,
Yeah,
which I,
stickers. Oh, the
which,
stickers were like the ordeal of the stickers and the production process. Ooh, many
oh,
hours arguing with
I'm
the printer about the stickers. He was like, "You don't need the stickers." He's like, "The stickers are gonna add like $2 a book," and I'm like, the stickers have to be in there.
so
Necessity."
you got this printed. Not maybe did you get it printed for senior project?
I got it printed after. I graduated in December. We got and the had them printed. I guess they went into production in March, either late February or March of 2011.
And it looks like a two color book, but it is just two color, right? The
It's two
orange and
colors,
then the
yes.
black. And but the stickers help you do if it was a night game or a day game. And then what's the day
Win
night?
and
What's that?
win or loss if your team won or lost. And the win says yay and the loss says boo.
Well, I'm really excited. I have a uncle. I'm gonna get one for him, and I hope he doesn't watch it. Anyway, that's what your Christmas present's going to be. Um, but I did promote it to him. I was like, you should watch this one. But I think it's just neat that Bethany went out to somebody in the audience to see if this would be something that would. I didn't realize that you went to him before you did the whole thing, but it's a really cool. The design looks awesome, and I love the design of the magazine as well, which is one of the things we're going to get to. But we're going to bring the next one up, which is the website, which is the Eephus League is a type of pitch, and I believe it's like slow, and then it's a slow type pitch or something. I don't know if
Yes.
it's slow and it gets faster, or it's just
It's kind
slow
of
all
like
the
a
way.
trick pitch, like slow, like you and I would like the speed that you or I would throw off the mound, like ridiculously slow.
Hmm. Yeah, not what normal is, so it psychs people out, I guess. But
Yes.
the whole background or the reason you created the site and the magazine and things like that is this minutia of baseball. And I think designers, I think a lot of us hang on to these crazy facts like, did you know that flamingos are pink because they eat shrimp. You knew that? So I learned
Yes,
that
I
from like a
did.
6 year old. One time she went to the zoo and they told her, I was like, no. And she's like, yeah. And I believed her. And so I nobody's gonna lie to a 6 year old at the zoo, I hope. So anyway, I mean, I think stuff like that is neat. So you've combined all of this into this one website, and you actually wanted it to be interactive where people could come on. Can you talk about why you wanted it to be like that, and then what kind of is on it? And I'm going to put the website up right here too, so people can
Okay,
look.
yeah, I knew that part of it was practical. I knew that I would probably not be able to, both lend as much experience and cool things as other people would, and be able to keep the site, updated as often as it could be if it was a community thing. I felt like it was something that a lot of people could get excited about, and a lot of people would have that type of stuff to share. So, I went, that was like the hardest part of making the website, was figuring out a way to make it to where, make it easy for people to upload posts and have them styled a certain way. If people upload quotes, they're styled slightly differently than regular posts. Not that's just boring code stuff. And
But you could,
I wanted to see what other people could, what they know about. I've been a baseball fan for a long time, but baseball's a really old thing, and there are a lot of people who have, way more experience than I do, and would have more interesting things to share.
definitely. Um, so you can actually, I can't remember. Anyway, the whole issue you can look through. I guess it's the book that you made, and it was like 121 pages, and it's on issue.com, which I love. It'll be up there in just a second. So you guys should spend some time. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm gonna put it in the chat too. And I got that from that Uniwatch or whatever. And I didn't know what Uniwatch was at first, and then I realized it was about uniforms, I
Hmm.
guess, right? Yeah, I
Yes.
didn't get that till like later in the interview. I'm like, oh, Uniwatch, now I get it. Okay, but it makes sense because you talk about uniforms and how they've changed and things like that. So, but I got things late, but I got them. But you stayed with the same kind of orange and blue, and then the like the Jackie Robinson. Is this? Did you paint that, or did someone else, or how
This
did
is
that?
something, yeah, this is something someone else painted. And a lot of the people who post lately, they post things like, here's this painting or drawing that I did. They want to kind of promote their own stuff and share it with other people, which I love. I love to see this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah, there are posts from a lot of different people on the site, and a lot of the posts that other people make are things like, look at this painting. It's a lot of it is art related, which I think is really cool.
yeah, definitely. Okay, so then this is the magazine. So for your project, you created the website and the magazine and the score thing and this huge, you really did a lot.
It was a
It
lot of
wasn't quite
stuff. The
that
magazine, the magazine actually came a little bit later. I did the magazine as an actual printed magazine when I was at Micah. We had a project to make a magazine, and I made it, through the Eephus League, because I wanted it to be something that maybe could actually, be something after I left school. And one day the following spring, I was like, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to see if I could make this into a website. I'd seen some other sites that had used the kind of parallax. EdX Quarterly is one that kind of uses kind of parallax uh, technique, where multiple things are moving at different speeds on the page, or some things stick on the page while you can scroll text. And I was like, this is, I feel like this is simulating like reading a book. And I'd be interested in doing an experiment and seeing, with the stuff that I've made for the print magazine, would it translate to the web? And I did it in a weekend, and I thought that no one would see it. I thought like a few hundred people would see it, and it would be, hey, this is this thing that I did. And it got like 11,000 visits the first day. It was like, it blew up like way more than I ever imagined anything that I would ever do would blow up.
That's awesome. Well, and I I love how you got your imagery, and I want to bug you a little bit about that. This was one of my questions that I didn't have on your sheet that I gave you that I'm like, ooh, after I read more of the things that you did send me, I'm like, I got to ask her that. Um, you got your images from the Library of Congress, which
Yes,
they are copyright free, and
yes.
they are beautiful. They
They are.
really are. So did you? Because I kind of did a little searching yesterday. I was like, I gotta learn how to use these Library of Congress images. But I know you can request printed, and you pay for the printing, and you pay for the delivery, or you can download some. And the ones that I just tried, of course, Dorothea Lange, she's one of my favorite, and the migrant worker, I love that one. So I, of course, looked for that one, and the download, it's not 300 dpi, and it or at 300 dpi, it's like 2 inches. It's like business card size or something. It's
Yeah.
pretty small. So how did you? I downloaded two different ways. One was that really tiny Dorothea Lange size, and then the other. So how did you go about getting your images? Because you did posters as well, and they're like 12 by 18 posters or something,
Yeah.
right? I did my research. I tried. Um, so how did you go about? Because they're amazing.
The images, I found that if you search for, like, if I were to go on the Library of Congress and search for, say, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, all the pictures are going to be like what you discovered. They're going to be, 300 kilobytes, teeny tiny, not great photos. But if you dig through just baseball in general, you'll find all these collection of these big photographic plates of all these players that nobody's ever heard of. This guy in the Eephus League magazine image. His name is Bob Williams. He's a catcher. That's another great thing about baseball. Everybody who's ever played, it's documented somewhere. It's documented who they played for, when they played for them, and what their stats are, which is really fascinating. So if you search for players who are not famous, you can find a lot of images on the Library of Congress that are beautiful, like that one. I'm not sure what the full size of that photo is, but that's not even 100%. It's actually larger than that. They have these huge, beautiful images, and I thought that the fact that they were more obscure players fit in with the whole idea of baseball minutia. I like that. And I like learning about these players as I was selecting photos for the different parts of the project.
Definitely. So really, you did all yours through the downloads.
Yes,
Cool. Well, I know you can. Anybody can just get a Library of Congress, and you can get a print like the Dorothea Lange if you want an original. It just isn't worth much, but it's worth a lot to your eyes, I guess. But
yes.
it's nice to know that these are there. I'm actually doing a project now, and I'm using old photos, and I was like, oh, these will be awesome. So I'm including it in. I did a little research. I might bug you a little bit after in an email or something if you don't mind. If you do,
No,
just
not
don't
at
answer
all.
the email. But it's beautiful. And I think we have some of your posters. I am not sure. I can't even remember. I was looking at so many. I don't think so. It was in the
Sorry.
promos that I used. That's okay. But they are beautiful. These anyway, they're beautiful. The posters, the way you did the type. And you talk about in some of your other interviews about how you love typography, and some things if you can, you would like to solve it with just typography, which I really like because this is, where's that? Here, and I know I'm totally going out of order. Still Eephus League, but it's this is the cover,
This
right?
is a one of the interior pages on a new scorebook design that I'm working on. So I had an empty page, and I was like, well, let's do something fun, because that's what the Eephus League is for me. It's like I get to do whatever I want with whatever fonts I want, and I can do whatever I want it to be, because it's kind of like it's my escape from, having to do stuff with clients, because I'm the client. And so well, make a ticket and make it, about scorekeeping and the Eephus League and score books, and just kind of, had Downton Abbey on, and I went to town on this thing and worked on it for 2 hours and had a great time.
It's funny because I don't think most like regular people don't realize that this takes 2 hours. They're like, what? Like it's not like making toast, people. It's not like we're just plot. I mean, we have to do it with, but I love that you gave so much extra white space. It's just, it's beautiful. It is. And you just every little bit is taken care of, and it's a really pretty piece. So why do you like designing with type so much, just on its
I
own?
like I like I like feeling like even if I had nothing to work with, I would be able to come up with something, just because I have fonts and I know how to type words. So, I can communicate a message. And you could take that even farther and so that you could communicate messages with shapes and all that constructivism, blah 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 blah. But there's a lot of instances as a designer where you don't have illustration, you don't have photos, and you just kind of you're given crap and they're like, we want something amazing and we need it in, 30 minutes. And, being comfortable with using typography helps in those situations a lot. Um, and I think letter forms are beautiful. They've gone through the rigors of a lot of time. To, the way they are, and when you think about how many typefaces there are and that are still being created and everybody has a different take on the alphabet, I find that all fascinating. And there's so many, even different versions of a standard like Bedoni, like there are however many different versions of that, and they all have their little eccentricities and stuff. Really good
Definitely.
stuff.
I think, I mean, type can be amazing, but again, this is something you didn't have to explain to your dad, thankfully. This or your parents, because your dad was already a designer, so those are always good things. I know I'm my parents don't get that part, but that's okay. They don't have to. Um, so with you actually have won some awards on some of your Eephus projects, right? With
Yes.
or just it's just I mean New York Times or New York Magazine, I can't remember which one. You've gotten tons of publicity. The Can you talk about some of that and how that happened? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, New York. It was New York Magazine that actually wrote about it, and it was just a tiny little thing in the back of the magazine. But they mention, they're talking about pop culture things, and it's like we like these things, we don't like these things, and they're talking like right next to their commentary about the show Veep on HBO is a little blurb about the Eephus League magazine, and I'm just like, what?
That's cool.
What is this? How did you find it? Oh my God. Like I was stunned. And I had a lot of emails from people being like, did you know that this is in there? I was like, I don't know. I don't know this person. I don't know how I got in there, but I'm really excited.
Yeah, it is. It's super cool. Um, there is also some of the other press that you've gotten with Edits Quarterly. Can you talk? Can you talk about
This
some of these? I'm
isn't
just gonna pull
Yeah, this
different
isn't
stuff.
something that I made, but this is the site that inspired the Eephus League magazine. Ian Cole did this site, and he's kind of like the guy who invented the whole parallax thing. If you've seen the Nike site where the shoes move at different speeds, like that was
Hmm.
something he did. So, I found out after I did the Eephus League magazine really likes it when people, take the techniques that he used and uses them on other things, which made me feel better because I was worried that I was maybe ripping them off, and I didn't expect it's like one of those things when you do it and then everybody sees it and you realize everything that's wrong with it and you're like, oh God. I was kind of,
Right,
I
right.
was very much inspired by him and I hope that, he's not upset, but I found out later that he's not, so I'm relieved.
It's the best form of flattery, and it doesn't look it doesn't look the same. I mean, technology wise, um, but it doesn't. I looked through it and I'm like, I don't see where the East League is in here. So I was like, you're gonna have to show me with these. But so I'm glad that you explained that. So then this one is another one that you gave me for around. Hopefully it'll pop up. So it has to do with baseball, and it kind of technology wise it goes. And I did not know a lot about Doc Ellis, but after you read this, he played a whole game high on LSD, and
He pitched a perfect game on LSD while he was high on LSD.
yeah, and he was a character. It sounds like
Yes.
just as I mean, there's always characters, but I did not know about this one in particular. So I thought it was neat. It was a neat read. So
Yeah.
what about that one? Were you featured in there, or was that another technology kind of thing?
I actually worked on that one. So this is an example of opportunities that were opened up just from that magazine. I got to visit Major League Baseball and interview with them. I got to visit ESPN and interview there, and then work with them on this site. So it was, it was something that was not, it was just something I did, for fun, and it ended up turning into a lot of great opportunities.
I think sometimes with students or when you're done but you're not really in where you're going to be or whatever, it's so encouraging to see that you doing something that you like got you stuff. And I think even with your wood grain project, which we're going to um, scoot into in a minute, it even doing that because you have a blog called woodgrain.net or wood hyphen grain. I can't remember. It's in here somewhere. End grain. End
Yes.
period. No. Is that what it is? End period
End
grain.
end dash grain.net because ingrain dot everything was gone.
Okay, and it's in here. I'll put it up there in a minute. But just what she focuses on has gotten her extra work or gotten her opportunities. And again, I just think you asked some people, which takes some courage, which I think is really good. So good for you for doing that for sure. So how marketing is huge for everybody. We're talking a little bit about how you marketed yourself, but and can you talk about a little bit about the marketing the Eephus ephemera because you made some things and I know I'm gonna oh this is the thing I forgot I should have just pulled up when we were talking about um this is the guy high on LSD pitching a game Doc Ellis right so this is one of the this is the and it kind of magazine rolls like that so
Yes.
um let's see. And then there was one more. This is from your magazine, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna those go quick. But then this is some of your ephemera. And he does talk about this in the Uniwatch. So I'm gonna ask the same question because I think it's really cool too. Why these cans? And did you print on them? Is this something if I buy this, it comes in this can? Or
Yes,
is
if you
this just
buy
for
it, does come in a can. I printed on the orange paper, so it's single color on the orange paper, and then I have to rubber cement or I use super glue on the cans. They're sold out currently because the cans are a pain in the butt to make, and so I've been putting off making new ones. And I also made the mistake of being like, yes, you get 30 pins in every set, which is a lot. It's a lot of pins. I had to buy, I have a button maker and I make them. It takes a long time to make that many buttons. So
yeah, and a
I've been,
maker's not cheap either. If just
no,
your
it's
first
not.
if it's a I've looked into buying one.
Yes.
And
Um, it was an investment, and it's been well used. It's paid for itself by now.
that's good. Well, I love the design. That's great that you used orange paper. What a what a good way. But it kind of has that like shoe shine, old paint kind of. It has that ephemera, old kind of feel to it as well. So I think that's great. I don't know if you found a manufacturer for the cans
I found
and you
A
just
guy on eBay who was selling a bunch of cans in the side. I bought some of the bigger. I used some bigger cans. I didn't need as many for the pencils that I made for the senior project. Those are just for school. I've never made any more, but these, since I actually, sell the buttons after Kickstarter was over, I knew how many I needed to make. I got that many extra from a guy on eBay who, for whatever reason, had a lot of these little paint cans, and then I, had to print everything out and assemble them. They're a lot of fun to make. They even have there's a piece of paper on the bottom too, so I have a circle cutter.
yeah, I see them.
They're
You
an adventure.
a black baseball on the cover, and then
Yeah.
so you have another. Yeah, and circle cutters are those are the way to
Woo.
go for sure. I'm I'm with you on that. All right. I think that is so marketing your stuff. How have you marketed your stuff and for Eephus League, and then we're going to talk about how you marketed yourself, if you don't mind.
So when it comes to marketing my stuff, getting it out to the right people, was a huge thing. Like getting it on Uniwatch, and there's a lot of baseball fans are just the best people in the universe. They are very excited about baseball. They're very excited when they see things like this, when they see younger people getting excited about baseball, when they see like new design in baseball. They get really excited, and they were great at helping me spread the word. um, and I don't feel like a lot, I don't honestly don't feel like I can take a lot of the credit for the success that it's had, because I feel like I got really lucky in that a lot of people got really excited about it and helped make it successful and make it happen. And I get tweets and see blog posts all the time about people who recommend the scorebook to other people, and that's kind of it still spreads through word of mouth. I don't get to devote as much time as I'd like to, kind of shilling for it. But it still lives because people, really people respond to it, which I'm so grateful for, and they get excited about it and keep it going.
Well, it's great. It's really neat idea, and then it's beautifully designed, Bethany. It's gorgeous, and just the way you've captured the images, the way you did the design, the type, it looks. I mean, you have been told this, I'm sure, many times, but it's a beautiful piece. The whole set, everything together, the magazine, the website, but it all goes together really well. You've kept the brand really well, but you had good teachers. Um, so after you graduated, you kind of traveled around, and why did you end up in Columbia? Like, what was the draw
Um,
to South
the
Carolina or
draw was to get out of the north. I spent a semester at Micah for grad school, which is in Baltimore, because I was like, Micah is like supposed to be the best grad school for graphic design ever. It's gonna be awesome, right? And it's not for me. And then I got a job in Boston, and I thought that was gonna be really awesome, and it was not the right place. It was great. It was good work, working on exciting things, but not the right place for me. I don't have the temperament to be in a city. I didn't ever feel like I felt in, north of the Mason-Dixon. So when I started putting feelers out about getting a new job, I had an offer from a place in Columbia, and I was like, I don't even know where Columbia is. I didn't know that it was state capital. Didn't know where it was on the map. But the more I looked into the place and talked to them, and then talked to other people about Columbia, it seemed like a good fit, and it has been. It's been great. Um, so yeah, I think that people have to know, don't just go to a big city because, that's what designers should do, or, you have to know yourself. Also, don't just stay home because you want to be close to your family. You have to work, and working. There's a lot of places that don't have good markets for design, but I think that there are still a lot of opportunities where you can, have some freedom to move to a place that's going to make you happy, and not have to be in a bad situation that's not right for you.
right? And Columbia's big, but it's not huge. It's not like Atlanta big or um, I don't even know if comparatively to like Birmingham, because I know you're from Alabama, so I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are, but for some reason, I have a lot of designers that I end up having on the show that are from South Carolina or they live in South Carolina or whatever. So it's just funny.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I had Charles Jeffcoat, and he had been the AIGA president in South Carolina for a while, and it's just it is a it is a small state. I mean, it's not tiny. It's not like Rhode Island tiny or Connecticut or any little ones. Not that anybody's little, but but it feels small because people know everybody. It seems like there's a really good community, at least for designers there. So that's neat. I don't know if you've gotten involved in AIGA there or not, but I encourage you to do that if you haven't. Um, do you have any tips for recent graduates if they haven't gotten a job yet, or for people who are going to be graduating? Do you have any insight into finding jobs
I
besides
know
just
that
putting
the
it?
yeah, I think that the biggest thing, the biggest skill that you could have that will help get you hired is knowing one good type skills. You know, any boss is going to recognize anything that you have that is showcasing typography. So if you have pieces that are, type driven, or make sure that those get seen. And then two, knowing web design makes it so much easier to get a job. I've not had to. I know a lot of people who have had to struggle, who are extremely talented, have had to struggle really. They've had to struggle badly to find work because they just there is less of a market for people who don't know how to do web design, and there's a growing market for people who do know how to do web design. And even if you don't know how to code, if you can just show that you know how to lay out a website, that's often all you'll be asked to do. And so that's a really invaluable skill to have.
Definitely. I think usability and user interface and user interaction, knowing about that is is really critical. Okay, now we're gonna well, you've relocated, I guess, 3 times in Baltimore, Boston, and Columbia. Um, you went to the Auburn A, then Baltimore, which is a B, and then another B, and
Yes.
then you're just alphabetically going down. I guess the
Yes.
next one's gonna be a D city.
Dallas is
You
next, I guess.
yeah, I guess. Um, so any tips for? I know that you said big cities just weren't really for you, but any tips for somebody who hasn't ever really moved away and maybe was from a smaller town? What should they do when they get somewhere new?
I think finding a group of, if you can find a social group, that's a big thing. Like one of my biggest problems in Boston was that the work environment was not great. And I lived, I chose to live in a place that was outside of the city of Boston because the rent was much cheaper, but it made it extremely difficult to meet people. It was a small place, and it just, there was so like I was miserable at work, and I had no like release. There was nothing to do to kind of escape, what I was struggling with at work. And I think that people sometimes ignore their personal well-being when they're thinking about jobs. You need to be happy and at both in your work environment and then on your own too, and which is why doing work on the side is sometimes really helpful. But yeah, don't go and be alone and stay that way and fester and be lonely, because it's going to make things a lot harder than it would be if you just had even a small group, a social group, as kind of a way of getting out of your job. Because if you move to any place for a job and their job is all that you have, when the job starts, not being great, then it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I also think give it time. It doesn't always happen. It's not like college. Everybody's not new in the
Yeah.
beginning, or everybody doesn't have that same kind of. It's a fresh start. Now we're starting. Everybody started at different times, so I definitely it's gonna be different than any other time in your life. So you just got to give it some time. So I know you have other interests besides baseball and besides design, still connected to design, but wood type. So we mentioned a little about it. Um, but you've been collecting wood type since you were a sophomore at Auburn. That's when you started, and I know your dad had type. Like I remember it in his office. So what was your draw? We talked about a little bit for typewriters, but like to me, it's the tactile. It's like, oh, I like to see, you know, how high it is, and how they cut these things. And I mean, there's a lot. It's a tactile thing really for me though, and I like wood better than metal personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's what a big draw is for a lot of people. I like the way that wood type looks when it's printed. I love them as objects themselves. Every piece of wood type is touched by somebody's hand. You know, a lot of the process is automated, but everyone has to be finished by hand for certain small details in the type, and that's really remarkable when you think about it. When you think about how much wood type had to be produced, how many different typefaces were reduced. A lot of these typefaces were made by guys in the back who knew nothing about, they were not classically trained in anything. They were just guys in the back, and they said we need an extended version of this typeface like now. You got to take this thing that we've already had and script it. And that's how a lot of the wood typefaces were designed, and it's remarkable how beautiful a lot of them ended up being. Um, so yeah, I love the way they look when they're printed. I love that, I love the scale of them. I collect a lot of big type, which is not necessarily practical for printing in most cases because you've got a lot of big type and you don't have a lot of room. But
How big is
yeah,
this
like
one?
that one he's 3.5 inches. I have a whole alphabet of that.
Wow. I
Really
have a
nice
friend
stubs here.
who's a printmaker, and she does a lot of, so it's ingrain. They do this with ingrain, I believe, right? And so she
Yes.
does wood engraving. So she
Hmm.
uses these, like she has a whole alphabet she's done, and she will take a letter and then carve into it and use that as her carving. So she's using it as a as ingrain wood because it's the best wood to engrave in. So it's a stronger wood. But she would probably hate it because she's like making all, I mean, she does beautiful work. You wouldn't hate that part, but she's, messing up the five. Some of them still read as a J or a five or whatever, but it is really nice. That's a big set to carry around, Bethany.
It
If you have a
is.
full
It's not even the biggest one that I have.
Ooh. So then you have, and I can't think of what typeface this is. What this one that I've just put up.
This is Futura, so this is like some of the stuff that my dad had, and it was not a complete set. So what the white letter forms are is for one of my directed studies at Auburn, I was like, what happens if, we try to make like new wood letters to replace these, missing letters for this font? So I worked with Professor Morgan, and we ended up coming up with a combination of plywood and plexiglass, and we used the laser cutter. And we made these replacement letters for this Futura typeface. And the nice thing is that the Futura is basically the same as the digital version of Futura that you can get. So I just took the font and converted it to outlines and made
Right.
the letters that we were missing, and they matched up really well. Um, and this like these we made one digital typeface, matinee Gothic. So we've made like a lot of whole sets of fonts that have never been made into movable type before, into movable type with this process. And I actually have been emailing with a guy in England. His name is Rupert, which is adorable. I love that he's from England. His name is Rupert. But he is working with one of his students to do this same process. So I've been sending him my files and the type of wood and everything that we used, and he's working on doing the same thing over there. And he says that he'll send me a set if they can do it successfully. So I'm rooting for him.
That's cool. That'll be great. Another set you hopefully get and doesn't cost
Yes.
a ton. So how was their printability? I'm interested with the plexi as opposed. It was the plexi underneath, or was these were plexi and you put them
Yeah,
on the
the
wood?
plexi is the white, and the plexi actually holds ink really well. You lose some of the because the whole idea of end grain is that it's hard and it's supposed to give you a really hard, dense surface for the ink, and it's not really supposed to impart its grain when you print it. Obviously, a lot of people still get that, and so a lot of people like that, and so you might lose some of the wood characteristics when you print with it. But if you're printing the way you're supposed to print, which is you're not supposed to have a lot of impression. You're supposed to have solid ink coverage on your letter forms. You're not really supposed to see any texture in the letter forms. So the plexi actually works really well, and it's really easy to clean up too. So we got them type high, so we printed a lot with these types of letters with wood type, and they behave just as wood type would. They're just not as pretty.
So even bleeding, they would bleed just as much as wood type would bleed?
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. That's cool. All right. That's like me geeking out a little bit. I would like to make some letters like that too. So I guess this is your whole after you had the alphabet, the Futura, and then
Yes.
this is with the wood and the plexi,
Yes.
the original. That's great. Yeah, you really can't tell.
Yeah. Pretty. We were surprised. We did not expect it to go as well as it did.
Yeah, that's cool. So what is this next one? This next typeface? I don't know this one.
That is one of the digital typefaces that we made into a set of movable type. It's called Matinee Gothic. It's by Jim Perkinson, and so we did a whole set of letters and some alternates, and made it into. So this is a type that has never been made into any kind of movable type before. It was made well after wood type was not being produced anymore, but we wanted to experiment with that, and I think that it turned out really well, and it's got little catchwords in it, like little scripties and stuff, which I like to throw in with my wood type.
Cool. All right, so I know that you have this is the end green. I'm gonna plop this up here, hopefully. And then I'm gonna in the chat. I'm gonna put a you actually, and I don't know how you got connected with Ashley and Trisha with the Vista Sands project and the wood type Vista Sands wood type project. And they actually had a Kickstarter, and I promoted it on the Facebook site, our Facebook site, the Design Recharge, and um, it met its goal or whatever, and which was great. And they're going to be on in late April, early May. We haven't decided on a date, but I wanted. How did you get connected with them? And if you click on the link over there, that will take you to the um, her poster that she did for them. And they actually the word touch is the word that they sent you, correct? Or
Yes,
did they send you? Yeah.
they sent
So
everybody the word touch.
okay. So how did you find them, or how did they find you, or
They found me, and I guess the whole reason that I've even involved in the wood type community, like on the internet, is at TypeCon one year was in Atlanta, and there's a guy named Nick Sherman who was a wood type aficionado. He had made some type with a CNC router in wood, so he had taken some ingrain wood and taken a digital router and had, made some. He had designed the font and made some letter forms, and I was really into wood type, so I was so excited to get to meet him, and I just walked up to him and introduced myself. And so that kind of got me into that world. So when I did Ingrain, he found out about it and wanted to interview me about it. It was sort of the same thing about the Paul Lucas thing. Just being lucky to know the right people at the right time. Um, and I knew a few of the other people who were participating in the project, including Cal Van Horn of Baltimore Print Studios, who's also involved in the project. So we're both in Baltimore at the same time working on this project at the same time, which is cool. Um, but they emailed me while I was at Micah, asking me if I'd want to be involved, and of course, I definitely wanted to be involved. And so the box of type came a little bit later than I was expecting it. So it was at the end of the semester at Micah, and I was getting ready to move, and I needed to pack up everything. So it was just like, oh my gosh, I got to print this poster and make it good, and I'd have a day. So it was an interesting experience.
but everybody didn't have a day, right? They gave people
No,
more time.
no, we had a lot of time, but I was just in a weird situation where I needed to move, and I was gonna be out of pocket and away from a press for a really long time, so I was gonna have to rush it. So it was speed running.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get it. So it's a beautiful piece. You obviously used some of your own type that you have. Um, in your type in your collection, have you made type, the plexi type? Have you, if you're like, oh, I want to make this, but I don't have a type, I don't have a type that looks like this. Can I? Uh, have you made type, or have you done all stuff out of stuff you bought and somebody it was real wood type?
The plexi type that I have, like we've made that digital typeface, which didn't previously exist out of plexi type. And if I was still in Auburn and I still had easy access to that laser printer, I'd be using it all the time to make things. But it's just that I've been moving so much and not had a press or anything that I haven't been able to experiment with that as much as I'd like. And I
Totally.
actually didn't have the plexi type on me when I worked on Touch, which I thought would have been perfect because, you know, they were working with newly made movable type, and I had newly made movable type, but it was away at a museum, like a show in Chicago, so I didn't have it when the project rolled around, which I was a little bit disappointed about. But did get to use all of my other type, which was nice.
That's cool. That's good. Well, and we're almost out of time. We have 3 minutes left. Um, you do have such a range of interests. How do you manage your time?
I have no social life. Not that like, oh my gosh, I like work all the time and I don't have a social life, but I'm just a hermit and I'm in a new place. So, you know, I have a lot of free time on my hands and I could use that, you know, in various different ways. I actually don't feel like I'm overly stressed or working all the time now. I feel like I'm kind of a slacker. There's more that I could be doing with regards to ingrain and Eephus League and all that kind of stuff, but I try to only work on that stuff when I feel inspired to do it. When I start like forcing myself to work on it, it's not fun anymore, and I feel like the work suffers. So I would rather wait and even let it be a year and not do anything and come out with something like the Eephus League magazine than, you know, force myself to do something every day and kind of sour on the project as a whole.
Definitely. Well, I want to continue to encourage you to do your EPIS project because you do beautiful stuff. But I am going to bug you about the Library Congress stuff. I may just call you and ask you about it. I'll try to do it on
Sure,
a weekend or something. But I want to encourage you to get involved in AIGA in South Carolina because they really do have a really good group. And I have a friend who teaches at South Carolina, and he does some amazing stuff. And um, I'll get you and him to in touch. And then my other friend that's at another school, Francis Marion, he teaches the other guy, Charles Jeffcoat. So I'll get so that you can get in with the AIGA people because I think some of them probably have a press. Somebody's in Columbia or near there, and then you could geek out with them. And I think you would love to have another person who could do some wood type stuff with you. I think, but it's
definitely.
not all. But one more question, and then I will let you go. How, because you have a ton of interest. How do you stay recharged as a designer? Like how do you keep it fresh?
I spend probably more time than most people looking at design stuff. I look at Um, like I spend time every day looking at a certain number of sites and web design inspiration sites to look at new stuff, both stuff that's happening over in Europe and stuff that's happening here. Um, just and even if you know, just because I feel like when you look at that stuff, it does, even if it's not conscious, it does stick with you. And I think it is important to take time outside of design to, you know, do other things that you like and then come back to it. A lot of designers, all they want to do and talk about is design, and it's nice to have other hobbies, sports, and other things that you can do and talk about to kind of give yourself a break and refresh yourself when you do come back from design. A lot of things that you do, you know, might influence your design in a way that you didn't expect. You know, you might see something, you know, being in something that's not necessarily a design situation, but will inspire your design when you come, you know, when you're back in that mood.
Definitely. I think getting out helps you to be a richer designer for sure. Well, Bethany, thank you so much. I'm going to put up some ways that you can follow Bethany on Dribble here, here, and then and your Eephus League at Eephus League. That's your Twitter handle, right?
Yes.
And I could tell you wanted to say ma'am, so thank you so much for not doing that. I could tell it.
I still
There was one
call Professor Lori. Like her name is Samantha. I call her Professor Lori. So I just there's some things that I just don't think I'm ever gonna grow out of.
well, I always still call your dad Professor Heck. He's like, you can call me Ross now, and I'm like, okay, Professor Heck. I'm the same way. I'm a good Southern girl, but it is. I'm just glad, thankfully. This one was beautiful, and I just wanted to pull it up. I know we're out of time, but what was this? Did you make this?
Yes, this is actually something that I get to do through my work at Cyberwoven. We do a lot of web design, but they've started something recently called the Ministry of Culture, which is basically a party planning committee. But they let me brand them, and because they were like, well, we want you to have something fun, that's more like the things that you like to do at work. So they like this is part of an apron that they gave out for a Thanksgiving like cook-off competition that they had. So this is another way, like finding things like this to do, even if it's very small, is a great way of keeping things, exciting and fresh and getting to play. I think that playing when you're designing is very important, and I'm very grateful that I work at a place that lets me play a little bit.
Definitely. And I don't know if you're on Instagram. Are you on Instagram?
I think I might be, but nothing interesting, nothing good.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna put up. This is my Instagram. This is for Design Recharge if it ever goes up there, but it doesn't look like it's going to. And I'm clicking and it's not. Okay, there it is. And you can always connect with me on Facebook. This is Design Recharge, or you can just do Diane Gibbs. And then you can email me if you have questions or you want to talk to me about something, or it's just Diane at designrecharge.org. And you can sign up for our email list. You can do whatever. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's pretty much the same things I put on Facebook. So it's not really much interesting, but at Diane Gibbs AU, which is Auburn University, and at Design Recharge. So Bethany, just thank you so much and I hope that we can have you on and keep up with you every couple of years. We can just see what other things you're doing. But I'm really excited about the baseball thing. Oh, I had one other question about that. So did you do real cigars? She has a cigar box that she did that was super cool.
I had my dad likes to smoke cigars, so I had him pick out the kind of cigars that he likes, and then I took the bands off of them, and I made bands and had them laser cut, and then put them back on. And like the second the senior show went down, he smoked them all. Like he gave them out to the other professors, and they were all gone. But I had the Professor Morgan help me make the box with the lighters that I had branded and all that. But Bobby Cox was the manager for the Braves for a long time, and I can always remember him, lighting up a cigar after big wins, and that's always been connected to baseball for me. And I thought that it would be another fun part of the project.
Well, it's neat. The box was beautiful, and you burned like the Eephus League on the box, and it was just I mean, the type is beautiful. You do gorgeous work with type. Well, Bethany, thank you so much, and thank you guys. And next week we have somebody from the Creative Group, which is a national company, and they place people, and they're going to talk to us about portfolios and creating them, and what order, and how to craft them for each individual. So we will see you guys next week. And thanks so much again, Bethany. Thanks, and War Eagle, and get involved in AIGA in South Carolina.
Thank you
I'll
so
see
much.
y'all. Thank you, Bethany. Bye, y'all.